Access Authority Nexus in Farmer Header Conflict AAN project. It is a project which seeks to study or research more in farmer header conflict in the Seche Afram Plains Enclave in Ghana. The project aims and objectives is to find solution to the farmer header conflict in that part of Ghana. The project coordinator of the AAN project, Professor Boatin Che, talks about the methods deployed to gather data and the objectives of the project.
The conflict between farmers and herders has been with us for some time now, and it is not confined to Ghana. You find it in other African countries, and in some of the countries, the way in which it manifests is even severer than what we experience in Ghana. Now, when it occurs, it affects local communities, it affects their livelihoods, it affects the general economy, and even translates into insecurity for the country as a whole, because we are talking about huge number of people who are involved in these conflicts. Now, because of the impact on people, livelihoods, and the security, a lot of research has taken place within this subject. So KNUST, as a lead institution, partnered with the University for Development Studies in Tamale and the University for Energy and Natural Resources in Sunyane. And then we had a partner from Denmark, which is the University of Copenhagen. So the four universities came together to develop this project we call AAN project that is addressing the conflict. Now the project has three objectives. The first one is devoted to research. And for that one, we want to see how the processes of gaining access to land and other resources, which is at the center of the conflict, and also losing those lands and other assets because of the conflict, what processes are involved, and what are the livelihood implications of these things. The second objective is devoted to capacity building. So in this research, we have a number of young people who are looking at the research component of the work, and we have 3 PhD students, and then the project is also supporting 11 master students. So in all, we are building a big team that is developing capacity in research related to conflicts. The third objective has to do with engagement or communication. So in this case, we are using the results that we have generated from the research to engage stakeholders, right from the local communities to state actors, those who have the responsibility to manage the conflict, as well as the policy makers and politicians in general, to see how our results can impact policy both at the local level and at the national level.
Some of the PhD students talks about their research areas and what they want to achieve with their research.
My study focused on farmer header conflict and livelihood nexus among households in Asante region of Ghana, and the study sites were 2, Seche Afram Plains District and Asante Achim North Municipality. Setting up to do this study, there were 3 main objectives that I intended to achieve. One was to assess household vulnerability to farmer header conflict using structural and prostructural approaches. And then secondly, I analyzed the effect of farmer header conflict on household poverty and well-being based on the cost theory, and then also using econometric models. Then the third objective was to assess household adaptation strategies and the effect of adopting the adaptation strategies on households' poverty and well-being. So for sources of data, I had data from household survey, which I collected from 500 households from farming households and then heading households. Then we also conducted focus group discussions. We conducted key informant interviews, and then we also had our personal observations during the data collection process. The result indicates that for the first objective, in terms of vulnerability to farmer-herder conflicts, farming and sedentary herders are more vulnerable to farmer-herder conflict. And vulnerability stands on three main pillars. In terms of exposure, farming households and sedentary herders are more exposed to farmer-herder conflict because of crop breeding. And then for sensitivity to farmer-herder conflict, the results indicate that transhuman herders, their levels are more sensitive to farmer-herder conflict because of their poor relationship with farmers and then sedentary herders. We move on to see the fact that influence vulnerability to farmer-herder conflict. And the results indicate that vulnerability to farmer-herder conflict is driven by environmental eco-survivalism factors, which includes climate change, the availability of pasture, and then also water resources. For the second objective, the result indicates that farming and sedentary herders, their poverty increased over the conflict period as compared to transhuman herders whose poverty actually reduced over the conflict periods. And problem, we realize that the reason is that when transhuman herders remain at their bay, at their original places, they are not able to get enough water and pasture for their cattle during the dry season, and so they lose a chunk of them. As compared to if they move to the city area, even though they know that the farmers and then police are likely to shoot or kill some of their herders, they are more likely to lose lesser number when they move to this steady site compared to they staying back at their original places. So it's not to say that they are benefiting from the conflict, but they are better off moving to the steady side than remaining at their original places. Then the third objective, the study revealed that for farmers, they either adopt farming adaptation strategies or non-farming adaptation measures. So the predominant farming strategy among the farmers are to harvest their crops early and then also stay in their farm late in the evening so that when cattle come, then they drive them away. Then for the non-farming adaptation measures, the results indicate that predominantly farmers now engage in charcoal production and then others also involved in petty trading. For the herders, they also adopt either herding adaptation measures or non-herding adaptation measures. The predominant herding adaptation measure has to do with the non-grazing. And then for the non-herding, most of the sedentary herders are now moving into farming. But for transhuman, most of them also move from one place to the other. One key thing that I need to indicate is the fact that some of the farmers are now using radio sets, especially those who cannot stay in their farms in the evening to drive away from cattle when they come. They hang a radio set in their farms and then they tune it to an FM station that operates overnight so that when cattle are coming, they think the farmer is in the farm. So it's kind of deterred them from the farm.
My research focuses on land access dynamics, territoriality, and implications for state building. And most of the research that has been conducted over the years look at the causes of the farmer-herder conflicts. And land has been one of the main causes in terms of access. But the question is, how do these actors, both farmers and herders, access land? So the research we engaged using the access theory to explore the mechanisms that both actors use to acquire, maintain, and control land resources. I used focus group discussion, key informant interviews, and participant observation to provide answers to the question that I asked. But interestingly, the question is, how do you engage people or farmers or actors or respondents who are mainly in the wild? For me, I think this was one of the interesting parts and an experience that I have enjoyed throughout this process. So from the land access dynamics, what I realized that there is an overlapping access mechanism within the terrain. Interestingly noted within the research finding is the fact that the one who grants access to farmers is the same person or the same authority that grants access to the herders or pastoralists. But interestingly, there are various mechanisms or arrangements that regards farmers' access to land. Farmers can buy land outrightly, or they can get lands on a sharing mechanism approach. That means you use land within a period of time, whatever produce that comes out of the land, you share the produce of the farm with the landowner. Or you can rent the land and use it to cultivate your food crops. And at the end of the day, whatever comes out of the land, you give a portion, what they call the token, to the land owner, which is mostly the one that holds the allotted title, that is the paramount chief. But when it comes to pastoralists, my research findings show that the pastoralists normally come within this enclave for a period of 3 months. And sometimes they are given a permit, which they call grazing permit, to graze their cattle. But this grazing permit does not, one, locate the exact place that herders can graze. It doesn't tell the time or the jurisdictional boundaries of the herders or the pastoralists. In this case, they graze within the enclave or the territorial boundaries of this landscape. And in that case, these cattle sometimes stray off the manning regions of the herders, following them, and then invade farm grounds. The basic essence of my part of the research was to extend this debate beyond just how farmer-herder conflicts impact on human and food security, by also looking at how this conflict impacts on the authority and legitimacy of state and traditional institutions, and how this drives governance and the directions of states throughout Africa. That's the basic objective of my part of my research, focused or examined the impact of farmer-herder conflict on the authority and legitimacy of state and traditional institutions, as well as how these conflicts tend to lead to the emergence of newly formed community-based groups, as well as social movements within our various environments. So far, the findings from the study reveal that farmer-herder conflict is an important source of authority to state and traditional institutions. The study reveals that dating back to the year 1990, since farmer-herder conflict began in Asante-Achem North Municipality, farmer-herder conflict has continually reconfigured the authority of state and traditional institutions within the municipality. The study reveals that the protracted nature of farmer-herder conflict within the municipality has led to the emergence of violent community-based groups that have continually contested, undermined, and invoked powers which are reserved for state and traditional authorities within the municipality. It reveals that the emergence of newly formed community-based groups who are against the activities of cattle herders within the Asante-Achem North Municipality has seen these newly emerged community-based groups contest and undermine the authority of the municipal assembly and the chieftaincy institution. The study reveals that while the chieftaincy institution has authority to manage and control lands within the municipality, the emergence of these newly community-based groups has prevented the traditional authorities from exercising powers granted to them. This has seen the emergence of these groups launch violent attacks on the traditional authority, as well as initiate various legal suits against them. These actions have compelled the traditional authorities to rescind most of the major decisions they've taken in relation to allowing cattle owners to operate within the Asante-Achem North Municipality. This clearly undermines the authority granted to our chiefs or traditional authorities by the Constitution, as well as through customs and procedures to control and manage lands within the municipality. It also clearly reveals that these newly emerged community-based groups have also contested and undermined the authority of the municipal assembly within the Asante-Achem North Municipality by imposing bans, as well as initiating various legal suits against the municipal assembly within the Asante-Achem North Municipality. This has also compelled the municipal assembly, which prior to these actions benefited significantly from the activities of cattle herders within the Asante-Achem North Municipality. This has forced these two groups, that is the chieftaincy institution and the municipal assembly, to rescind all their decisions in relating to determining the development of agriculture within the Asante-Achem North Municipality, as they are forced by the actions of these newly emerged community-based groups to take firm decisions by imposing a ban on all cattle herding activities within the Asante-Achem North Municipality. The study reveals that the constant activities of these community-based groups is preventing these legitimate institutions, that is the state and traditional institutions, that is the municipal assembly and the chieftaincy institution, from determining development and the direction of growth within the municipality. This is currently having a significant toll on the direction of development within the municipality, as these institutions have become very weak in the discharge of their duties within the municipality.
As part of the AAN project, we're also looking at the media discourses of farmer-header conflict. So I looked at 11 online media outlets in Ghana and the major frames that they have been used in characterizing the farmer-header conflict. I used the critical discourse analysis and content analysis of the news that they put out there. So about 1,101 news articles were downloaded from these 11 media outlets and used the critical discourse analysis to find out the frames that have been used. Some of the major frames used were stigmatization, alienization, and the discourse of politics. So realize that most of the headers have been stigmatized, and the framings that were used about them have put them on the margins of the Ghanaian community. So most of the Ghanaians tend to dislike the headers, most especially those of the Fulani origin and descent. They attempt to be described as criminals, murderers in most of the major framings that we do.
Some of the stakeholders who were engaged talked about the benefits of the research. There are some impacts and achievements that changes in policy and practice from local to national level that can be attributed to the project.
Research omodia brain no kre ya nentwefo brain emwa bebre lem say emwa bebre isia no program a omodia bay ama ya ho say yeso ye wo tumi say ye beye yemwa ewo Ghana ha ana be bia we ko Ghana bia wo we nentweso wo tumi say we beye onentwe ho adwuma wo ana omama ye ho say wo ba so na say wo ba asase no owura nte se wo asase wura ho na ko pe asase ewo asase wura ho na oma obabi na tena na secondly so assembly so ho wo wia na osa ko assembly so ho se ona mo hihye mra edi mayen na wo di wo akotira mo na bibi so ba mo so betumi abo wo ho ban.
It's a central front place unkwa ebetima feed the whole Ghana, a food basket ebetima feed the whole Ghana. But here's the case, they be na nantwikafo any kuafo no ntokwa ewo muntim. But so maba omuna assembly be kabo mu aye bylaw no. Ebeboa ya assembly members nso so ye sumbedwie kakra fi se obia ensam famra enhye nsem. At the same time nso so transhuman for no omomfo obia ho omowura district mu ebra benimfo na na se ahemfo no enim bibia fa ho na mo sisi aba ya be implement bylaw no assembly nsusu benya IGF kakra assembly members nsusu ayewo district no mu yesusu yasum bedwie efise obia enso nsimra se wo committee na mra no eno adi.
I've seen some research works and I must say that this one is unique. It has touched base with the people, especially the peace that has brought between the farmers and the herders. Hitherto, it was difficult to even bring these two people together, but now we are able to bring them together, educate them together, for them to also share their ideas and so on and so forth. I must say that even the research has not ended, but we are feeling the impact. The peace we are enjoying, the togetherness we are enjoying, the education we can give to the people. And now they have also gone ahead to help us draft bylaw that will govern herding in the district. And I must say it's very good because we were just doing things haphazardly. And now,
say 4 years near Fulani for any Akuafon Tokana buying. Ama Fulani needing an antioco say Kuaniniama. Okunan train my Fulani phone to Jinasu Kunkum Akuafoni Biba program we are the buying. Penifo Jinaswama Fulani needing an antioco say Kuani no buyer or more friend. Emani Triahoka. Nti program na omode ba ya omudi hu humanity ama frane fo ne akuafo no asumdua ba yentem disi ade frane ni di ne nantwe kwosai kuani no ba ya omoka ho asem ma asumdua ba disi ane de ene frane fo no ya tena asumdua mu ma ohaw bia ansa ne yentem.
Emi say asaba ewo sama ye kanu ebeto so kakra amai. Enti emi say yewo asama ehai ewo Ghana haye ayekita mba eni inkuyafo. Nti emi say 4 years ni na ewo hono intakoni nema bi wontimi hu na ekase venture say weni mu akosa obi nema say enti obi akon obi enti weni nyina ya hu say 2 years ni ya hu say ampa ade no ikusuko from kakra enti afi we de anya asunje kakra ewo so.
I'm saying Sajimadi started being fee one as a in Tampana, Omana Mona, Nim at the Pra, Ama Omanamo. The Chichenwa, the Omujumadi, and said, a fire, flan, phone, and a peer phone until. I know correct. Tempia, Omoba, no more busy, and some near the Seplan phone and some. Until few hobano. Na flan phone near na normally appear phone. The swoop 80. Na momo abedu afiwe dia yetu nsidumadi a omo ye ye mfaso aba se anye bra afiwe itinu se ifra no na le ba ye no ya han egusu jo pa obaka se o mama ansa na sa meeting na omo be play o do mo visit assembly ye pimo amen ko amadwe dia dumadi a omo start no a front page a boy efa afla ne fo ne apia ponte
sakra foforo sisi anokre mra kakra bi mpenimfo baaye abetietie ye no nsem de o madwen amaye e de o meso adwen abaye so ye de adwen ama na am se ampa o mo sa pini yachi no na nse ye hunu se anokre nhihye bi a o me de ato akwan nim hunu se ababoaye pa.
So for the access and authority nexus in the farmer header conflict projects, myself and my colleague Dr. Ejay look at how agro-pastoral policies have influenced the farmer header conflicts. I specifically look at how the policies, the actors within the conflict are influencing agro-pastoral policies in Ghana. And what we found out was that during the colonial time, it was the colonial government that promoted cattle railing in the country. And cattle railing or pastoralism was promoted to address the issue of food insecurity in the country. So headers of Fulani origin were brought in from Burkina Faso and other parts of the country to bring cattle to Ghana. And people in the north, some people were trained in the art of cattle railing. Then after independence, the government after independence was socialist. So he also tried to bring in a new policy which promoted cocoa and other cash crops. So cattle railing was neglected. Later governments were also hostile towards pastoralists. And we have what we term Operation Cowleg took place, where the state used military men to drive away cattle and herders who were presumed not to be Ghanaians outside the boundaries of Ghana. And this, the Operation Cowleg was undertaken because government wanted to respond to the cries of concern from our farmers that cattle were destroying their food crops. So now the state have moved away from the Operation Cowleg, where cattle were driven out of Ghana or other farming communities, to sedentarization policy, so the ranching policy. What it means is that the state wants to promote cattle railing or livestock farming, but livestock farmers or herders are being made or encouraged to herd their cattle in enclosed places. That's where you call the ranch. And when they are moving, corridors are also to be created for them, so that the cattle do not end up destroying people's farm. So that is where the new policy is trying to address. But unfortunately, some farming communities and farmers are against this policy. They want total elimination of cattle from their communities, something that is difficult to be achieved. So now we are recommending that these two major actors have been influencing the policy discourse, but they need to come together
we are suggesting they use multi-stakeholder dialogue so that they can all sit, come out with their concern, come out with solutions or recommendations, and help address this conflict, which has become perennial and it keeps escalating day in, day out. I use interviews, focus group discussions with arable farmers, herders, cattle owners, people in the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, veterinary officers, and we also added a facilitated workshop where the findings were presented to them for their input.
The project coordinator, Professor Boating Chire, touches on the key recommendations of the project.
Going forward, in terms of recommendations, in a conflict situation, it is not advisable to make recommendations that do not have stakeholder input into it. And so we are hesitant in making very specific recommendations. But from the perspectives of the results that we have generated, we want to state that one of the things that we should take very seriously going forward is stakeholder engagement. It is very important to get the people to talk, those who are actors in the conflict, as well as the wider stakeholder group, to get them to talk. At the beginning, it was difficult to get this done, but through the research and our constant interaction with the people, we have managed to initiate this, and it's working very well. And I think if we are going to make any significant progress in resolving or managing the conflicts, that dialogue should be sustained. And what that means is that also in other areas where we don't have such facilities for engaging people, the state, through the district assemblies, can have something like this happening. And it makes a lot of changes. Okay. Apart from the dialogue, we also recommend that whenever orders are made, whenever decisions are taken that involves people's do's and don'ts in the farmer-herder conflict, this should be communicated quickly and effectively to all actors so that they know what to do and what not to do. Sometimes laws are made, the people who are supposed to obey the laws don't even know the existence of the law, and they just run into it, and then the conflict escalates. So that is the second recommendation we want to make. The third one is about the fact that our attitude towards herding as a country and as communities has always been in the negative. And a lot of people may even wish that this was a livelihood that could be quenched, eliminated, because they think it is not compatible with modern economies. But that is not the reality. The reality is that we should see how, as a country or as communities, we can address the negativities associated with the herding and make sure that it is compatible with the aspirations of populations that want to make a living, whether through animal rearing or through crop production. And then finally, we want to see more research done in this area. I remember when we made our initial proposal, some of the comments that we had from reviewers was that, is there anything new that we can learn about farmer-herder conflicts? Haven't we had enough research on this subject already? And that what is left is for people to transform these results into actions. But we have learned from the work that there's a lot to be learned. There's a lot that we don't know. There are local specific conditions. There are changes all the time happening. And so we cannot sideline research when in trying to find a solution. It is something that we need to pursue and make sure that our arguments, our dialogues, our perspectives are informed by scientific information and not by emotions and probably past experiences which are no longer relevant.